Hi, this is Chris Allison, and this is the Genesis Ag Podcast. I'm here today with Philip and Josh Davis. Philip is the company founder and president, while Josh serves as vice president of Genesis Ag. Today we'll be discussing the upcoming beta launch of our new premium customer program. This program will allow customer access to premium content, webinars, new support options, and much more. I'll now turn things over to Philip to get us started.
Josh, you're getting ready to launch a new program within the company for certain producers to be involved in. Tell me a little bit about that.
So the thought process behind this is I've got several guys that I work with really close, but I'm not always on their farm. Some of those may be in Michigan, some of those may be in Indiana, Ohio, Texas, wherever it be. I can't be everywhere all the time, much like you can't be everywhere all the time. So what our goal is behind setting up this system is being able to offer the knowledge that we have to a producer where he can learn it himself, and he actually can go out in the field and make an assessment and then send us his assessment back, whether that be looking at things that he may have just done on his own that may not have had Genesis Ag products applied to those, or maybe through the application of Genesis Ag products, he's seeing something and he can make his own assessment off of that. Really, what our goal is to start with winter webinars. We've previously done large group winter meetings, but I think the time of that has passed with the pandemic still going on that we're facing. So we feel like it could be safer and touch a lot more people by doing webinars, getting people educated on certain points and certain avenues, interests that we could get a guy saying, okay, I see where you're going with this. Then follow that into basically monthly things that they're going to get from us, depending on what month of the year it is, to say, okay, this is my crop stage. Let's say we send out videos in March or April about what you can do with your planter, your in-furrow, your nitrogen management through the planter, so on and so forth, and letting the guy get all the keys and the tools that he needs through this, along with having, let's say, product information or ways to apply, giving him everything he needs from our perspective, along with assisting him in learning. It's just like one of the little things that for someone that may sign up with this, it's coined the toolbox now. It may be called something else going forward, but it's got a soil probe in it. And it's something I've noticed going to a lot of farms is a lot of farmers inevitably don't have their own soil probe because they're not pulling their own soil test. This probe's not essentially meant for them to go out and pull 10,000 soil samples. It's to go out and stick it in the ground and see what their soil profile looks at 4, 6, 8, 10 inches deep, so they can learn, okay, I wonder what this is. And they self-educate themselves through some resources that we give them to say, this may be one of my limitations. How can I get past this? So it's really a resource that we're going to do for guys. Yeah, there's going to be a cost behind it, but once people see the way we've got it structured, there will be 2 tiers available. This should become operational for a limited group around the 1st of December, and then following in January when the webinars and everything, access to those come out, we should be able to actually offer the subscriptions, year-long subscriptions for either tier, depending on which one people want to jump into. And it's really a how-to about everything that we do, from our on-farm visits that we've done in the past. It educates that guy, educates the guy on products that we have, potential programs, growth stages. We're trying to cover the most that we can cover. This being year one, we're trying to get the most we can get out there. It's going to essentially be no cost to them because it could be easily recouped through what we've got, but it's going to be a huge learning tool for people, and it's going to help us touch all those people that we've always said may disconnect. They may order product and get disconnected. It's going to continually be information feeding them at the right timings to say, okay, let me just take a minute and go look at this. If a guy's not willing to go out and spend 10 minutes in his field every couple weeks, how successful are we going to be anyway with that guy? So it's meant to educate and help our relationship with the grower.
Josh, over the history of Genesis Ag, we have had people that have come to our website and they've asked, give me your corn program, or give me your soybean program, or your small grain program, or whatever it may be. And we've had programs that, look good on paper, and whether a guy uses them correctly or not, we've really not had any control of that. And so you are designing, and you having a concept of helping a producer be more successful. And when I say more successful, with working in the biological world and long-term success of being sustainable on this farm. Tell me a little bit about that program and your vision with that.
So what my goal is with this is to put together a program that would aid and assist a farmer, and he could potentially not be a Genesis Ag customer. We would hope that he would be, but there's a potential that maybe one would not be, but essentially be a resource, almost a digital consulting service, to provide the information, tips, training session. We may even have some classroom session type things to where a guy could learn himself. We always go to farms, and even farmers going to different farms, that ask other farmers questions, but they never ask them themselves when they're in their own field. What we want to do is provide the questions or the points to say, okay, I'm going to go out to my best field today, and I know that it's going to be 280 bushel corn or 70 bushel beans. I want to learn why it's doing that good, or I want to learn why it's not doing better than that. I want to be able to provide the resources over time for a guy to go out and say, okay, this could be a limitation, or this could be something that's going on for me. So our program would essentially be a monthly scenario that would be thrown out there. We're going to start with a limited number of webinars with a limited number of seats available for those in the winter, like we've done winter meetings before. Then that follow into monthly, January, February through December, of targeted timings and specific projects that we offer, training sessions, classroom style things where a limited number of people could join in on the topic that could pertain to the upcoming growing cycle or time of year that's going on, that someone could learn from what we had to say, because we've always been successful when we step foot on a person's farm, but the days of that happening are getting less and less based on the current situation in our country. And you and I have only got 2 legs apart, so we can't get to 1,000 or 2,000 different customers. This helps us help them assess what they've got going on their own. Not saying we may never step foot on their farm in our lifetime, but it helps them actually go out and dig up a plant, make an assessment. They could potentially send us their assessment to get some feedback from us and say, okay, go out and check this, so on and so forth. But it really educates them on growing cycles of crops. It could be cleaning out your sprayer at a given time. Could be what the seed treatment's supposed to do. You and I both know people that have used Invigorate, and they put the seed in the ground and wait 140 days before they harvest a crop and say, I don't know if I saw anything or not. It urges them to get out there and dig up a plant at V2 or V3, check your stand, check your root mass, check your plant size. And you coined the flag test, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago. Maybe go out and put flags out there and say, okay, this is what my stand looks like. Don't wait 140 days, because most of us don't pay attention to what happens during that 3.5, 4 month period before we run the combine through it. Then we rely on a yield monitor. Invigorate's meant to get the plant started off correctly. So that would be a good thing to get a guy to go out there and dig it up. He could watch our video on his phone while he's in the field. Okay, I pop up a plant. Do I see this? And he take 10 or 15 minutes on a Monday morning before his hands get started working and say, okay, I get this. I checked that one off. And it'd be a year-long thing, specific products to specific timings, and they learn as they go, and it will continually roll over as we build a larger and larger portfolio. That, let's say you got around to October and you were like, well, what was that video of? You could go back to your March, April, May, because you're a member of our platform and you have access to all this content. So as it continually goes, it's going to be a good deal for us.
So you're not saying it's just the macronutrients that this program is going to be concerned in or focused on. It's going to be focused on a very broad spectrum. It's going to be giving a tremendous amount of information back to the producer and it's going to be a learning process. He has to be involved. If he's not involved, the success rate for him is going to be very limited. So the more involved he is, the higher the success rate for him would be.
Correct. And also, depending on what tier he's in, we're going to have two different tiers. One of those would be one that's integrated into biological testing and whatnot, and then we've got the base platform tier that, depending on where he's at, he could be interactive with potentially other growers. He may not know a name, but he may know them as a number. I've already got 007 as mine, but somebody else could maybe have a number, and they're interactive between numbers and research data, because that upper tier is really geared toward research and learning what biological testing, nutrient testing, so on and so forth. The bottom tier is basically just flow of information. And then the cool thing that we've done, I know a lot of groups out there are charging astronomical fees for consulting, and they're taking all the money. We're basically giving additional incentives to these guys to recoup money by purchasing product for us at the end of the year following into the next year. So it's basically them giving us enough to get started, saying, okay, I'm interested in what information you have, and then they could get it all back at the end of the year based on their discount structure. So this is not really a for-profit, so to speak. It's for the farmer to become more educated, because it's like we've said in a lot of our talks and our videos, once a guy gets to that 4th, 5th, 6th year of being on our program, they continue to have these wow moments. We want the wow moments to continue to happen.
So from what you're telling me, if I was a producer and I wanted to learn, okay, after 2 years even really after 1 year, because there's going to be data the first year they're involved about, okay, what did the Genesis Ag biological program, did it improve my biology? Because here's a key factor, Josh, and you and I both have experienced this. Where we're looking at the biology, first year, okay, really the ears determine the girth of the ear, so forth and so on by 500 GDU, say. So really our biology's not had time to kick into gear that first. We're not going to affect a lot on as far as we could reduce the amount of N. We can say that pretty well off the bat. But everybody's wanting to know, okay, I want the yield. I want the wow factor of the yield. But in this program you're talking about, they're going to actually be able to see, okay, here's my starting number. I do have a control. And here's where I'm finished up after a year. Here's where my control finishes. And here's where my biological program finishes. So they're going to be able to see that themselves. It's not like we've got that data in the back room, so to speak. They're going to be able to see, okay, here on Philip's farm, I started at these numbers, placed the biology, then I came to these numbers. So that's going to be pretty exciting for that person to be involved in that. So they're going to have to do some work in this.
Right. And it's, if they're in that upper tier, all this information will be public to other people within that tier so they can see the differences. But you mentioned that everybody wants to see yield. I remember when we did this with 8 different farmers 2 years ago, and 6 of the 8 scenarios, the treated block, when we pulled the initial sample before anything was applied, 6 of the 8 potentials were dramatically lower. and we called up or surpassed those in every scenario. Now, is it a statistical yield difference, or did we come out ahead on money? Not all of those didn't happen, but once the farmer realized, okay, we started out 10, 15, 20% behind where we applied the biology, still yielded the same or better, but looking at it from that perspective, they were like, oh, you're right, instead of just applying the product and taking the combine through the field at the end of the year. So that's where a lot of the information that we're going to put out there, a guy is going to have to go out into the field and pop up a plant, maybe scratch around on his soil surface and see
What that kind of told me in that scenario you just said, we got on some of the worst areas of the field. They're not saying they did that on purpose, but by doing the testing the way we do, we know our starting numbers before our biology is ever applied, because our first test, the control, and then what will be the treated area is taken, then we apply the biology. So we know that, and so for our numbers to catch up that dramatically, that was a substantial increase. So it's pretty exciting about how that happened.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank Josh and Philip for being with us and providing some great information on the new Premium Member Program. If you'd like more information on this or any other Genesis Ag product or program, please drop us an email at info@genesis.ag. Thank you for joining us, and hope you can be with us very soon for the next edition of the Genesis Ag Podcast.